Sports. I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Melody.
And today we're taking a look at Train Heist, the game of right and wrongs and robbing trains. This is a game in which you are cooperatively trying to rob a train together. And for some reason there's pictures of animals on the back and on the front, and there's a couple tiny pictures of animals in the game, but you wouldn't even know that it was animals if you looked in it. But I guess you're animals. It says here something about the sheriff and, well, anyway, so there's a train that's going to be driving around the board, and you are galloping up, trying to steal things from the train and avoid the sheriff. Here's how it plays. Okay, so here's the board, and before we go into anything about components, I think the components for this game are okay, right? Except, I think these are neat. You have these, basically these dials here to keep track of the train speed, and here you're going to keep track of how many heists you need to do to win the game. So you might say, all right, we're going to do 15. But these are magnetic, and so these spin very nicely here. That's just a neat concept. I wouldn't mind seeing more games using this. Each player is going to use this meeple, who has a very, very wide stance, but that's so you can put them on these horses. You're going to start with 1 or 2 horses, depending on the number of players. Everyone here is going to start in Crackpot Canyon. There's going to be a train that's going to go around the board. A player is going to get a turn, and then after their turn, the train will move equal to their speed. And the train is going to get faster and faster. Why does this matter? Because every time the train hits one of these areas here that has nothing in it, you're going to move a token down on this hangman's track, and if it gets to the bottom, you lose the game. So before that happens, you're going to get this train heist, or you're going to need to make sure there's loot in there. So you're going to have to be constantly looting the train. You're going to need to get to the train, you need to get some loot, then you need to get it and drop it off in a town. When the train hits it, that loot is going to go back into a bag, and from that bag you're going to pull another piece of loot to replace it and put back on the train. So how do players get to the train and get the loot off the train? Well, on a player's turn, they have 4 actions. Many of these actions are going to be tied with cards. There is a deck of cards with different suits here that show pawns, guns, and there's wild stars. So you're going to be using these different cards and different suits and bags to move. You can move a horse, for example, by playing one of these cards, and that's how far you can move the horse. Or you can just move on your own, but then you move 1 space. When you get to the train, you get on the proper train car in the exit and move around on the train, but don't move where the marshal is, because if you move where the marshal is, you get captured and put into the engine, where they force you to shovel coal, which makes the train move 1 space faster, and someone's going to have to come and free you. So you have 4 actions, and you can, for one of your actions, you can take a bullet, which will give you an extra action on a future turn, or you can move on a horse. You can loot. If you get on the train and you're not where the marshal is, and you have cards matching the loot tokens. So this one you need an ace, a 4, and a 9. So I'll look at the cards in front of me. You don't need to keep them in your hand. You can just put them out here. So if these are the cards, I have an ace and a 4. Well, I need to get the 9, maybe trade it from another player. And so we can trade cards with someone in the same space. You can also, for an action, once you have the loot, drop off a loot at a town. You can also go to these switch tokens and switch them. See, the train is going to come around here and follow the arrow. So it's going to come around this way, when it's just going to keep going around the track. But if you flip this switch, it will come down here and go this way. If you flip that switch, it will go up. When it hits a switch, it's going to follow the arrows. So you can make the train go the directions that you want it to by moving those switches. After the first player's turn comes around, a new event card is going to come, and sometimes these will switch the railroad tracks. Sometimes they will increase the speed of the train. Sometimes they will bring out a Cherokee tribe, which is going to cause you problems. And sometimes they will move the marshal. The marshal will also move whenever you play a wild card. Wild cards are great because they count as any number in any suit for purposes of stealing loot. It's just that when you use one, the marshal will move. You also can fulfill a wanted card. If you do what the wanted card says, it says running across all 4 train car roofs in a single turn, you will then get a special ability. Once per game, you discard your whole hand during any player's turn to move the hangman token back up 1 knot. These sound really cool. They're not. And so that's essentially the way the game works. You're going to be moving around, jumping on and off the train. There is a competitive game, but as most games with cooperative, it's so idiotic, it's not even worth it. You're all trying to get your loot yourself and put cubes on it of your color. The game is a cooperative game, and that's the way it's meant to be played. Okay, I like cooperative games. I think you're a fan of cooperative games. It's fun to play games where you work together, and I really like Wild West type games. I do have to talk about this theming though. I mentioned at the beginning, but it's crazy to me that these animals riding, and yet in the game you barely notice that at all. It's a really weird theme. It's like you are tigers riding horses. Really? Okay, cool. But is that on the artwork? No, it's on those little tiny loot tiles, and that's it.
Animals is slightly odd.
It's also just kind of the components themselves are okay, but I thought that the game is really trying to be super thematic. A Western and we're riding up on horses, but it doesn't end up feeling thematic. It feels very mechanical. And the way that cards are used, I got 2 pairs. Like when you get on a train, what is the reasoning behind? I'm gonna rob you. You can't rob me. Do you have 3 of a kind? No. Then you can't rob me. You're right. I don't mind the whole trying to figure out where the train's gonna be, galloping up, getting on the train, avoiding the sheriff. The really, really slow sheriff who moves randomly and now you're never really worried about. But I just felt like the theme wasn't much there at all for me.
Not to mention the horses are like Flash.
What do you mean?
By the way, you can like use a card to move them, and like you don't really have to worry about if the horses can reach it or not, unless you're like going halfway across the board, but even that, it's not that hard to do it.
Yeah, it's a really weird mechanism. You use a card to move the horses, and the horses, you can move them when you're not on them. So I think the remote control horses, and 2 people can ride the same horse.
Animal game.
That's true. That's true. You're talking to a horse. We're going to rob the train, and the horse says yes. Okay, but what did you think about the game itself as you're playing these combinations and trying to get on the train?
I found it boring.
Why?
I don't know. It just wasn't interesting, and because I don't know, it was the whole card situation. How you had to have certain cards, and if you didn't have them, you didn't really do anything except move the horse and just follow along with other people who did it.
That is the nail on the head there, I think. Okay, you need these exact card combinations to rob these people on the train. If you don't have these combinations, you got to do something else, which is not very interesting. Moving the horse into position, running around the board. And so you do all this and you're working together, right? So it's cooperative. Like, okay, you have the right combination, but it just felt like there was a lot of times where it's like one person didn't do much, but that wasn't my main problem with it. My main problem is you do the same thing over and over and over and over. You jump on the train, you grab it.
Get that first loot, and it was like get 15 of like.
Right, and that was like the medium game. And it's like, okay, set it up, get this, get on the train, grab the loot, get off the train, go drop it off at the town before the train gets there. Good, okay, now do that 14 more times. What? And it didn't have any, the train is moving and the train's getting faster and faster, so there's that. But I don't know, I can see what they were doing, and I feel like they added too many rules too, like, ooh, here's what happens when there's a tunnel and all that jazz, and like, you're adding too much without the theme being there. This is a good effort, I think. But for me, it doesn't follow through. The theme isn't strong enough, the game is too repetitive, and it's not fun a lot of the times. And you're sitting there basically doing math, figuring out, okay, in 3 turns the train will be here, and I will be here. And I don't know, I just felt that didn't all come together. I think it needed more development. Yeah. What about you?
For me, it was just when it wasn't my turn, I didn't really feel the whole teamwork part, because I would sit there and be like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing right now. I guess I will just do this. Because like I said, I didn't have the cards that anyone really needed, so I didn't really feel included until it was my turn. I was just like, okay, I guess I'll move here. That was it.
Well, so for me, Train Heist is going to get a rating of 5. I don't think it. Like I said, I wanted to like this game a lot. I thought the idea of a cooperative train heist sounds fun.
And the moving train was actually pretty cool, how it moved around like that. And how it
a little fiddly though, because you have to keep going, move. That got a little old. I think maybe if they connected all the pieces somehow.
But how it could go off one side of the map and go on the other.
That's neat, although again, it doesn't make sense thematically. This train is just going on a figure 8 and while we rob it. But
think of a bigger map.
What would you rate it?
A 4.
A 4. Well,
I didn't like it.
All right. Well, that's that. Interesting ideas. We don't think they coalesced in anything that interesting. That's Train Heist. I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Melody.
And you've been watching Double Trouble.
Boom!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.